Okay, good morning class, welcome back. Today I shall be starting with the 5th chapter. Alright, now you know that I've already sent the question answers and other notes for chapter 5 and chapter 6. Now I want to start with explanation of chapter 5. Alright, now first the chapter is urbanization and its impacts. So what the definition? Chapter is chapter number 5, urbanization and its impact. We shall be doing the definition, causes, and in case if we have time, we'll be doing the impacts also. Okay, now let's begin. What do you mean by urbanization? Alright, now in simple terms, urbanization is the growth of towns and cities. Now there are various reasons why there is the growth of towns and cities. Okay, now in your book the definition is given, so you have to learn the definition from the book itself. Alright, the simple definition. The first line, what is urbanization? Urbanization is a process in which people move from, that means they are traveling. Remember in the first chapter we had done migration. What do you mean by migration? Yes, now we had also done the causes of migration. Alright, so we'll just do a short recap before starting off the chapter. What is migration? Migration is the movement of people from one place to another. Now one place to another means it may be from the village areas to the urban areas. It may be from one urban area to another urban area. It may be from one country to another country or one continent to another continent. Alright, now coming back to the chapter. Here it says urbanization is the process in which people move from rural to urban areas, and why? Because of which cities and towns begin to grow. Alright, so when we were doing migration, we learned that people were moving or migrating from the rural areas to the urban areas. Firstly is, the most important reason is in search of jobs. So because of that reason, they were traveling to the urban areas in search of jobs, and they were settling down in the urban areas. Alright, so when you settle down in the urban areas, obviously the number of houses in the urban area will increase, it will grow. Alright, and suppose if there is not limited or there is not enough houses in the urban areas, what has to be done is new houses have to be built. Alright, so the small towns are growing in size. Okay, they are growing in size. So urbanization is the process in which people move from the rural areas to the urban areas. Now because of which cities and towns begin to grow. Now this movement of people from rural to urban areas leads to an increase in the size of urban population. Alright, so when they are moving from many villages all around the town, people are moving to a single town. So excuse me, the population of that city or the urban area is going to increase. Then growth in population results in expansion or extension of urban areas. Now change in the size of population leads to other changes as well, such as land use pattern, economic activities, type of housing societies, and impact on culture. Alright, so now changes in the size of population leads to other changes. The first one is given, land use pattern. So what happens is, suppose this is a certain town area. This is a certain town area. Now in this area, suppose before migration was there, so before migration began, a part, let's say 50% of the land was used for housing. Okay, so when 50% of the land was used for housing and the other 50% were used for some other purpose. All right, it may be for agricultural purpose, or it may be for any other thing. All right, so what happens is, when from the rural areas people are traveling to the urban areas, then more number of houses are built. So the use of the land, or the pattern in which the land was being used, is changing. All right, so the empty land, sometimes it may just have been a barren land, nothing was happening in that land. So what happens is, now people are traveling to the urban areas, and then they require a place to stay. More houses are built. So the way in which the land was being used is changed. Second one is economic activities, meaning in the rural areas people mostly work in the agricultural fields. All right, but when they go to the urban areas, mostly the urban areas do not focus on agricultural activities. There are other n number of jobs other than agricultural activities. All right, so here it leads to the economic activity. That means the way in which people are earning money is also changing. Next is type of housing societies. All right, now when people would not migrate, all right, when migration was not taking on a large scale, what happened is, people could easily get land to build houses. All right, land was easily available to build houses. So what happened is, people were buying a piece of land, and then they were building their own personal houses. They had the entire property to themselves. All right, so similarly, many families were building their own bungalows or houses on a piece of land. The entire piece of land belonged to that particular family. But now, because people are traveling from all over the rural areas to the urban areas, land is not available for only personal purpose. So what happens is, people start building tall buildings, and then the families start living in apartments. All right, so personal, now housing is changing. People used to buy land, buy the piece of land. So the land was owned by a single family or an individual, but now the land does not belong to a single person or a family, but only the apartment. They are the owners of the apartment only. All right, so if there is a compound, then they have joint ownership. The people living in the entire building can use the compound. All right, so here you can see that the type of housing society is also changing. Next is impact on culture. All right, this part I'll be doing in detail in the next point. Okay, now causes of urbanization. What are the main causes of urbanization? First one, if you look at your book on page, this is page number 47. Page number 47, the first cause, main cause of urbanization is industrialization. Now, what do you mean by industrialization? So, when I said urbanization, industrialization. So, all these are a process. All right. So, process means there are many steps involved in this activity. So, what is urbanization? Industrialization. Industrialization is the process in which more number of industries or new industries are set up. I repeat, what is industrialization? Now, industrialization means when more number of industries are set up. So, when more number of industries are set up, what happens? How does it cause urbanization? Now, in the introduction, I told you that in the rural area, most of the jobs that is available in the rural area is based on agricultural activities. All right, is based on agricultural activities. But in the urban areas, all right, in the urban areas, most of the jobs that is available is based on industries. All right, based on industries. So if more number of industries are set up, all right, more number of industries are set up, that means there are more number of jobs available, and the industry requires more number of people. So that is why all these rural people from the rural areas flock to the urban areas in search of job in the new industries. Industrialization creates employment opportunities, meaning when industries are set up, there is more number of jobs available. So people from the rural areas migrate to the urban areas because there are more employment opportunities in the cities. All right, this is the first point. Now the second point, social factors. Now this is related to the previous chapter, migration. All right, so in migration we learned there are social reasons why people migrate. So here also urbanization, there are social reasons which causes urbanization. Now into your book, many people migrate to cities to bring about changes in their social life. Now this means for better standard of living. All right, you must be remembering the examples that I give you in class. Remember when we said, why do people migrate to the cities? What are the social reasons that they migrate to the cities? It is because they want a better standard of living. So many people migrate to cities to bring about changes, that means to uplift their standard of living. Now, unlike the rural areas, in the cities, caste is not linked with profession. Now, I told you in the chapter migration, same thing. Because people are based on caste, they are divided based on caste. Now, in the rural areas, people are not so educated in comparison to the people in the urban areas. Now because of these lack of education in the rural areas, people do not understand. We have already reached the 21st century, but people are still backward. The thinking capability is still backward. They still segregate people based on the caste. Alright, so you belong to the Shudra, you go and become a sweeper. The menial jobs are done by the Shudras and the Vaishyas. Alright, so if you are a Brahmin, then you can become the Pujari of the temple. But this is not the case in the urban areas or in towns and cities. You get job based not on your caste, but based on your qualification and your ability. Alright, ability and capability. Okay, now unlike the rural areas, in the cities, caste is not linked with profession. Therefore, the opportunities to work in favorable environment increases in the cities. So what happens is, in the cities, if people are educated, if you are educated and you are capable of doing a certain job, you are qualified for that job, then you will get the job. Alright, but an individual is not chosen to do a job based on his caste or his or her caste. Alright, okay. Now next is financial security, meaning to earn money. Alright, okay. Now for economic purpose, in rural areas, people depend mostly on agriculture. Now for agricultural activities, what do you depend on? You depend on the monsoon. Alright, now for agricultural activities, water is very essential. And in India, we have seasonal monsoon. The monsoon climate is seasonal. We have rains only during the monsoons. So what happens is, here you cannot, sometimes the monsoon is also, it does not come on time. It keeps on changing. All right, so if you know that certain plants can be grown on a certain season only. So you have certain plants, certain crops can be grown only in certain season. So what happens if you have, for example, if a farmer has planted a crop during the monsoons and which require a lot of water, but because the seasons keeps on changing and the monsoon does not arrive on time, then what happens? The farmer undergoes a huge loss. So you cannot depend 100% on the monsoons for water. So because of this reason also, farmers, traditional farmers, people who have been farmers for generation, they are leaving the agricultural jobs and they are migrating, because you cannot depend on the monsoons for water, and if you undergo a huge loss, then it may happen once, all right, you can undergo loss once, but if it starts continuing again and again and you cannot depend on the monsoons for water, then you don't have a choice but to leave that agricultural job and go to the urban areas to start earning for some other people. Okay, in rural areas, people depend mainly on agriculture for their livelihood. Now in India, agriculture depends mainly on monsoon, which is quite uncertain. That means it does not come at the exact time. Now in case of drought, the rural people suffer great losses and often migrate to cities for better earnings and financial security. All right, okay, next is transport and communication. Again, the same point is being repeated in this chapter also. Okay, so I'll just do the last point for today. Transport and communication. Urban centers have a well-developed network of transport and communication, railways and roadways, telephone and wireless services, postal services. All right, so all those essential services that is required for communication, all right, is required for communication is easily available, in fact easily available in the urban areas, that means in towns and cities. For example, when we were doing migration, we again learned that because of transport facility, there are better transport facilities in the urban areas compared to the rural areas. That is why people like to migrate, because if somebody falls sick, then the medical facility is not available, proper medical facility is not available, proper education facility is also unavailable in the rural areas. That is why, because of transport and communication, communication is very, very essential in the 21st century if you want to succeed in any business. All right, so because of this, people flock from the rural areas to the urban areas. Okay, we shall be doing till here today. In the next class, I will be doing the last 3 points of causes, and then we'll be starting off with impact of urbanization.